the Psychedelic Furs, a band now in this country in support of their second American album release.
Right.
The album is called Talk, Talk, Talk. I'm speaking to Richard Butler, who is the singer and principal writer, I guess, in the band.
Well, the lyric writer, not the principal writer musically. So we're very democratic the way we work, I think. We all do the music, and we all put the same amount in, I'd say.
And to Duncan Kilburn, who is the
Principal
saxophonist. Saxophonist?
That's right.
The principal sax player in the band.
Number one sax player.
In fact, the only... I see this time on the tour that you're playing keyboards too.
That's right, yes. A little experiment in extrovertness.
Let's talk about the band for those who haven't heard too much about the Psychedelic Furs. First of all, where is the band from in England?
Basically around London. We're based in London. We started around 1977 with a group of friends, and we just decided to be in a band. Duncan had sort of been playing, he'd been in New York actually before with his job, and he'd had sax lessons for 6 months or something.
Well, I had been working on it.
We just decided to start up a band. We called it the Psychedelic Furs because the punk rock movement was going, and we wanted to keep clear of that. And they were called so many heavy different names, you know, like the Razor Blades and the Sex Pistols and the Screaming Farts and stuff like that. And we wanted to acknowledge our influences. And we sort of took a lot of feeling, if you like, from the music that was going around at that time, and the heaviness of it, but we also took a lot of influences from the 60s.
What led to the name Psychedelic Furs? Did any one person think of that?
Yeah, I did. Being the principal lyric writer.
Principal name giver.
Yeah, I just...
Does it have any particular significance to
It was actually it was between Richard and Jack Daniels, I think. Came up with the name. Jack Daniels contributing more than Richard did.
Did everyone in the band agree immediately to the name Psychedelic Furs? Or was there a band?
Yeah, we were just sitting in the bar and somebody came in and said, "Hey, you're the Psychedelic Furs, aren't you?" And we just said, "Yeah, that's it." It started as a sort of hobby, if you like, but we built up a following quite quickly. We did... Where it first started happening was a pub called the Windsor Castle in London, and like we did 4 Wednesdays there. We had a residency, and the first 2 were empty and the second 2 were packed. And then we moved into a bigger hall, which was a place called the Music Machine, which holds a couple of thousand people. And they had us back there about twice, and we filled it both times. And like CBS at that time were wandering around going, "Hey, what's this band doing?" You know, nobody's approached them about signing them, yet they're filling a place like the Music Machine. And so they signed us.
This would be 1977 or 78?
No, this was about 1979.
We're talking about
Where was your audience coming from? I first saw the band in London in November or early December of 1979.
That was a very chaotic gig at the National. Was that the one there was a riot at?
Yeah, lots of bottles flying through the air, the drum kit flying through the air.
Well, no, Vince kicked the drum kit over.
Well, that's what it was.
The bottles came the other way.
What was that the sort of audience that you were accustomed to, or was that a...
That particular show was a particularly unpleasant one. We didn't get a lot of that, and in fact the people that were actually causing the trouble, as always, a very small percentage of the audience. And what happened right after we walked off stage, and you know, like with glass all over the place, was the audience threw those guys out. You know, they sort of...
the audience actually physically
grabbed them.
The mass of them grabbed about half a dozen troublemakers and physically threw them out.
Which is what we like to see, you know. So that was like, I mean, that was like not a typical gig, but you know, at the time we'd get a lot of...
That was kind of typical of the very early gigs, though.
Yeah,
I think
much
the rock
before
scene,
that, yeah.
That when we played the punk clubs, when you got a name like the Psychedelic Furs, and if you can imagine being in 1977 when punk's at its height and everybody's playing at 90 miles an hour and singing about, you know, a list of things that they hate, which is what the punk bands were doing. Then you get a band called the Psychedelic Furs going on and playing We Love You. We had some bad reactions then, I think.
Well, where do you think your audience came from, the people that were just sick of all of that?
I don't really know.
Well, I think there was, to a certain extent, there was a small audience that sort of went away for a little while, you know, and came back a little bit later on, because, I mean, you know, like, when that whole thing was going on, there were a lot of people that sort of wanted to be part of it, but didn't want to go the whole way, you know, didn't want to walk around looking like that, but they really liked the music, which is pretty symptomatic of the way we felt as well, you know. I mean, you don't, and yet that,
I think
that
people, like
peer
I
group
said,
sort of thing, you know.
Just people just getting fed up of music going at 100 miles an hour and you know, listing things they hated instead of...
Yet when I see a play now, people are dancing to the music that you make, and it's not going at 100 miles an hour. So
Oh yeah, sure, they're so easily dictated to, aren't they? It's a fashion thing.
what do you think it is that separates the music of the Psychedelic Furs from the other bands that are currently popular?
Originality.
I always notice that the way the vocal and the sax sometimes tend to run together, following a similar melody line.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard question to answer because I mean, people would say that we had a trademark off the first album, which was very much that. It's a number of things all meshing together instead of actually, spacing themselves out and leaving room for other things. That was very much a trademark of the first album. But the second album's got less of that, and a lot more melody, I think. So I mean, but there are other bands that are moving in that direction as well. I mean, it's not. Melodies have been around for such a long time. It's such an important part of it. It's as if we just discovered them. But then again,
you could say melody's been around for a while.
Then I think, you got to think about what we're going to do on the third album with having done those two things.
When you play live, I've noticed that the songs are not. They always have the same structure, obviously, and follow basically the same melody. But there seems to be a lot of room for improvisation. Is that true still in the live shows? In the sax breaks or in the guitar breaks?
Well, yeah, I guess it is true because we don't actually always play the same thing each night. But I think it tends to happen more towards the middle and end of a tour, if you like, where you get much more comfortable with something, so you feel that you can start to move around it a bit more. It's happening towards the end of the UK tour, and it's something that you sort of look forward to. Once all the pressure's back a bit, you've got it started and it's on the road and it's working all right, then you can spend more time doing that.
Also, when we first started out, lyrics were never written down. I mean, some songs would last about 15 minutes. I used to make up the lyrics as I went along on stage. But when we recorded the first album, that sort of freezes things, if you like, and then you get people come down and see you, and you start off a riff, and you're doing these totally different lyrics that you're just making up, and you got people down the front who bought the album, and they're sort of trying to sing along, and they're mouthing the lyrics, but you're singing totally different ones, and they get really upset by it. So you tend to...
But because of that, I mean, because of the way we used to work, which was very, I mean, I think our sets would last anything from like an hour and a half to sort of 2 hours. Really go on for a really long time. Mainly because there was no way that we could actually finish the song properly. So I mean, we just improvised for as long as we could all keep playing, and then stop and have a little break and carry on. So we're quite good at it. So when we do come to feel comfortable with those songs, I think it'll sound a lot more interesting.
We're talking to Richard and Duncan.
This is a very laid-back conversation, isn't it?
Well, it's a very laid-back band.
You reckon?
It's a very laid-back afternoon, I should say. Really.
Right. Now, you toured this country, you came to this country and played, I guess your first date here was at the Mud Club in New York City.
Right, that was last June. That was a one-off. We came specifically to do that date, if you like.
Right. But what did you expect, and did it turn out the way you expected it?
Just like all the American cop movies that come out of New York.
It was inevitable.
Well, Duncan, you'd been here before.
Yeah.
Was there as much music going on live in the city at the time when you were living here, or had it changed radically?
No, I seem to remember that it was even before CBGBs and all that. So I mean, I was here while the Sex Pistols were doing the 100 Club in London. See, so I mean, I missed all that in London, but there really wasn't anything comparable over here. And I didn't know what to expect because I mean, the club scene as such wasn't as it is now. So I was I liked the Mud Club. I thought we did a good show there, I think, as well, or good 2 shows.
Did you want to come back again after you'd played that one day?
Oh yeah. I don't think anybody really wanted to go home except me. I had tonsillitis and a fever of 104, so I was quite glad to get out. But everybody else, and
The first tour was strange. We got very tired towards the end of it because it was extended. We burnt ourselves out, if you like, by...
We sort of planned it to be like 3 weeks or something, so we figured we'd be phased after 2.5 weeks and we could get through the extra half week. When they come back and say you've got to do 2 more weeks, I mean, that's not very good. Cause
Yeah, we were pretty tired, but it's like going on holiday, when you're on holiday, the end of a holiday, you always say, wow, I wish I was back home to see some of my friends, and then you get back home and you think, what the hell am I doing here? I want to be back on holiday.
A bit like sort of long train journeys, really.
When you're on the road, and you're on the road quite frequently, are you able to write new material, or do you have to...
We have to, this one. Yeah.
You do?
But we haven't as yet.
We've got a couple of tunes, but they're not finalised,
It's easy
they're
to
not
see...
songs yet, they're tunes.
Yeah, it's easy to see how you could write songs, but it's very hard to actually find the time to do it. You know, to actually, you know, we thought before we came over, well, we're all going to be in a hotel room at some time. We can sort of start messing around with something, but you never are. You know,
it's been more hectic this tour as well. I mean, there's loads of interviews to be done and photo sessions and all that kind of stuff.
and just a little bit more than we expected, which is good, really. You know, can't complain.
When you finish touring and you go back, do you take a holiday for a little while and then start all over again?
After America we go to Australia, then Japan. Then I think we got about 2 weeks off, and we're thinking of starting recording. We're going to record the third album over here, and that's going on about the 1st of November. So we don't get a lot of time off.
Not really. If you add all that up, it'll probably come to the 1st of November, actually.
Psychedelic Furs, with an E, not an O. And Mr. Jones from their new album, Talk, Talk, Talk. It was produced by Steve Lillywhite. What role does a producer play working with a band like the Furs?
Mediator, number one.
Particularly with the Furs, it's like we've all got our own ideas about, you know, I was saying it was a democratic band earlier on, we've all got our ideas about how we want it to sound, and a producer tends to stop us fighting. I mean, if we can... he gets in between us and the mixing desk, if you like.
Yeah.
So we can tell him all the ideas and all the effects we want individually, and he'll sort out the good ideas and the lousy ones. He'll use the good ones and obviously not the lousy ones.
Steve in particular is a great arranger as well. You know, I mean, he comes up with a lot of his own ideas for melodies and things, which then become available, you know, as they're required. So I mean, he fulfills a pretty good function there, and he worked with us in pre-production this time, which I think helped a great deal, actually coming into rehearsals while we're still writing and coming down to shows and passing candid opinion on what we were doing, which, you know, like it's like you get a chance virtually to sort of tour it, which we didn't have, but having somebody work with you that closely, it helps a lot.
It seems that the only place that one can hear new music immediately is on college radio stations.
Yeah.
Have you found this to be true in the time that you've spent in this country?
Yeah, the large difference, I'd say, between England and America is that in England there are 2 main radio stations, and they're very heavily playlisted. So the 3 music papers you get over there have a lot of control, if you like, over what happens. They sort of can make a scene, if you like. And they pick people up and drop people very quickly, and there are, you know, as you know, England's a very trendy type of country. You know, you get different fads coming one week and then they'll be gone the next. And there's nothing, you don't have college radio over there, which is how something builds up in a grassroots way, if you like. And you get a lot of young people listening to stations that aren't dictated to by advertisers and stuff like that. So it's very healthy, you know, they're good.
We're talking to Richard and Duncan from the Psychedelic Furs. I think we should close with another song from Talk, Talk, Talk.
Yeah, alright. Why don't we do She's Mine?